Hi, I'm Nicole Majeski, Secretary of the Delaware Department of Transportation, and welcome to On the Move with DelDOT, Delaware's transportation podcast. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to On the Move with DelDOT, our new transportation podcast. I'm C.R. McLeod, Director of Community Relations for DelDOT. In the months ahead, we're going to be using this new podcast to cover transportation topics across the spectrum. And today, we are really excited to welcome you and have our first guest on the new podcast. We're going to be talking about roundabouts with our Deputy Secretary and Chief Engineer, Shante Hastings.
Hello, everyone.
Shanté has been with the department for more than 20 years, and this is a topic that has been polarizing and is still new to many Delawareans, and we thought it'd be worth spending a little bit of time talking about what roundabouts are and really what we're hoping to accomplish by using them. And hope this will provide some good information for everyone as we are continuing to build roundabouts and utilize them across the state.
Certainly.
So let's start at the top and really for those that are new or unfamiliar with roundabouts, what is a roundabout?
Sure. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of them and get to the modern day roundabout. So we're talking about circular intersections. So first up, we're actually in the 1790s in Washington, D.C., if you think about DuPont Circle. So not a roundabout, a circle, but nevertheless, one of those first kind of circular intersections. Then we move into the early 1900s with Columbus Circle in New York City. And then you start seeing the transition to rotaries in the New England states in the 1930s. Segueing across the pond to Britain, in the 1960s, they took a look at those circular intersections, and I should probably back up. So circles and rotaries traditionally have traffic within the circle yielding to those entering. And they're much larger than your modern day roundabout. And so entry speeds can be very high. And there are some safety issues related to that. So the British in the 1960s said, hey, what if we try and change who yields within the circle? And so instead of folks circulating yielding to entering traffic should yield.
And we're all familiar with, well, many of us who have seen the vacation movies with Chevy Chase, Clark
National
Griswold,
Lampoons.
going through and getting stuck in one of these.
Yes.
Big Ben Parliament.
Exactly.
Look,
And
kids,
so,
Big Ben Parliament.
when you think about circles and rotaries being really large, the funny scene there is that he keeps, referring to the things he's seeing because he's just trying to exit and he can't quite get over. And so fast forward to modern day, late 90s, early 2000s, the U.S. really started finally embracing the modern day roundabout. And so the definition, if you will, so circular intersection, yield on entry, with channelizing islands as you're entering to slow traffic down, and then circulating in a counterclockwise fashion. So when you're entering the roundabout, you're always going to the right to go in that counterclockwise fashion. And so that's the modern day roundabout. They're much smaller than your traffic circles and rotaries, which allows for slower speeds entering and easier kind of exit movements. We do have some multi-lane roundabouts, both within our state as well as across the U.S. And so those are a little bit trickier to navigate because you need to know which lane to be in as you're getting in and knowing where you want to exit. But they're able, the multi-lane is just able to handle more traffic volume.
Right. So roundabouts aren't new. These have been around for a long time.
Correct.
And we're not the first state to utilize them. There's a lot of states that are utilizing roundabouts, have been for a long time.
Yes.
And are really continuing to utilize them more for those reasons that you've just cited. And can you tell us about what are some of the benefits of roundabouts?
Sure. The biggest safety benefit is that you're reducing the number of conflict points. So if you think of a traditional four-legged intersection, there are 32 different points where vehicles could be conflicting with each other and having a collision. With a roundabout, you have 8 of those points. So right there, you've got basically a 75% reduction in that potential. And so that's huge. We talked a lot about the speeds. Entry speeds into roundabouts that are designed properly, you can't be going more than 20 to circulate within that roundabout. You don't have enough room to do so, and we don't want you to be going any faster than that. And so that's a huge benefit as well.
And we've spent a lot of time talking about crashes and fatalities
Yes.
over the past several years, and with the increase we've seen, and thankfully saw a modest decline last year. And really, one of the problem areas is intersections where we
Correct.
see serious crashes because of speed, fatal crashes as well. So eliminating that possibility is something that is accomplished by using a roundabout.
Yes, very much so. They're more efficient as well. Especially in those off-peak times, think about a traffic signal. Someone's always waiting, whether it's in the middle of the night. One of
Right.
those streets is always waiting. It could be the major street, it could be the minor street. You really eliminate that definitely in the off-peak hours. And during those peak times, folks are able to, circulate through. You may have to wait a smidge longer. But again, if you were at a traffic signal, you potentially are waiting a minute and a half to make a maneuver every time if you don't hit the light kind of just right.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all been in that situation where there's no traffic coming in the other direction, or at the crossroad where you are, and you're tapping the steering wheel and saying, "All right, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up." So,
Yes.
it's nice that the roundabout doesn't require that. If there's no one there, you just keep moving.
Yep, you keep moving. They're safer for pedestrians and cyclists. So pedestrians have shorter distances to cross, and they have refuge areas. Cyclists can cross in the same manner as pedestrians if they feel more comfortable doing so, or they can ride with traffic through the roundabout because, again, the circulating traffic isn't going more than 20, 25 miles per hour. And so it's just a much safer location for them to be traversing different streets within our network.
And that's really been a big part of our multimodal approach. With all of our projects now, we're looking at how do we incorporate safely pedestrians and bicyclists.
Exactly.
We're not just looking at, okay, how do we just move cars through this area?
Yeah, I mean, multimodalism is the way that we're going to be able to address the growth that we're seeing. We want people to be able to walk places, to bike places, to take transit. And so having safe crossing locations is really important for folks, especially, those the older populations, those towing children in hand. I don't want to cross a big, busy intersection with my little ones, but happy to do so if you're, crossing 10 feet here, waiting a little bit, the next 10 feet, and now you're on your way.
Well, that's a future topic we can come back to. Multimodal.
Yes,
So
we can.
we'll remember that.
Yes, we can. And then the last thing I think that's really important about roundabouts is both their resiliency and the sustainability aspects of them. So I'll start with sustainability. If you think about a traffic signal, you are paying to power that traffic signal. There's maintenance that's required. So there's the upfront kind of cost of all the infrastructure related to it. And there are ongoing costs for the life of it. And at some point, you have to replace it. With roundabouts, you put it in and it's good to go. We do lighting at a lot of our roundabouts, so that would be a similar cost, but that would be in addition for a signal to just the equipment. And then from a resiliency standpoint, we have experienced some storms over the last
Absolutely.
few weeks and have had signals go down. They have lost power for a variety of different reasons. And roundabouts don't have that issue. So you're still able to get through those intersections. We're not having to send staff out with generators. We're not having those unsafe things happen as folks are waiting for the generator power to work. So again, there are a ton of benefits to roundabouts.
Well, it's definitely something that we're continuing to use more of. And I think people are starting to see more of them. And we've heard a lot of comments, especially in the lead up to when we're planning a roundabout. We announce a project that's including a roundabout, and we tend to hear a lot of the same, we'll call them common misconceptions about why people have this trepidation about the roundabout. Can you walk us through what some of those common misconceptions are that we hear?
Sure. The most common one that we hear anytime we go out somewhere and or along social media, as soon as someone mentions the word roundabout, is other states are removing them. Why is Delaware kind of behind the eight ball on building these things? Well, not true. A lot of states are removing their traffic circles and their rotaries. So again, those larger circular intersections that have completely different intersection controls and have safety and congestion issues that have happened over decades, really. So yes, they are removing those, and people often cite New Jersey. And it's funny, as I was doing a little bit of research for this, it's funny because in 2017, New Jersey actually won a National Roadway Safety Award for constructing a roundabout at a location and improving safety. So I'm pretty sure if they're building new ones, they're not removing roundabouts. Now, there is a time and a place for all of our intersection control, and I'll take a moment to talk just a little bit about intersections. So if you think about how an intersection grows up, if you will, you've got your two-way stop control. So you have a four-legged intersection, and what we would call the minor street has to stop. The major street just keeps flowing. Typically, your next step is going to be one of two things. You're either going to go with an always stop, so stopping all traffic as it approaches the intersection and one at a time going. You can do a traffic signal. You can do a roundabout. It depends on what the volumes look like, what the crashes are looking like, how quickly we can get some of those things installed. So oftentimes we can do an always stop very quickly. A traffic signal can take us anywhere from a year to 18 months because of supply chain, because of having to design it and other things kind of being in a queue. And a roundabout can take kind of around that same time, maybe even a little bit longer, because we have to do all the design elements and all the public outreach. So it depends, but there's kind of that stepwise. And then once you get beyond whether it be a signal or a roundabout, we're typically looking at a grade separation. So if you look at the Route 1 corridor, the 113 corridor, we've either implemented or in the process of implementing a lot of grade separations because that's when the traffic is just so high on both sides of or both streets, the major and the minor, that you need to do something different. And so there is a stepwise approach. So we are doing this in a certain manner. And so you may see a two-way stop become an always stop. And then that always stop, depending on traffic volumes, could become a roundabout or a signal. And then ultimately graduate, if you will, to the mother of all intersection controls, which would be the grade separation.
No, that's a great explanation. And I think one of the other comments we hear is, well, if we're putting roundabouts here, why aren't we just using them everywhere? And each intersection is unique.
Correct.
And we spend a lot of time studying the intersection, looking at what the traffic volumes are, what the predominant traffic movements are, before we make a decision about what should go here. Do we need, is it time to signalize it? Could we use a roundabout? Is it time to start thinking even bigger for the grade separated intersection? So
and
I think that's
what the context is of that area and what you want it to be. So if you have a corridor that has a lot of speeding issues, and that's one of the number one complaints we get in the department.
Absolutely.
And so if you have speeding issues, well-coordinated traffic signals aren't going to address that. Roundabouts are. And so that's another factor in addition to looking at the traffic volumes, looking at the crashes, looking at peds and bikes and seeing how to safely get them across, but also really using it as a traffic calming measure.
Okay. And what else are we hearing a lot when we start talking roundabouts?
Well, I think the next one to cover is that, trucks and emergency vehicles and farm equipment can't possibly make it through there. And a couple of things. One, we take that into consideration when we do the design. So we're making sure that those vehicles can circulate through this intersection. And most importantly is we've actually designed it so that the larger vehicles can go up on what we call a truck apron. So you have the paved area where we want normal vehicles to traverse. And then you have outside of between the inner circle and the traveled way, you have the truck apron. It's designed to actually be driven over by those heavier vehicles, whether it be large tractor trailers, farm vehicles, fire trucks, you name it. That's what it's for. It's uncomfortable for a normal vehicle to get up on the truck apron. That's important, and we design it that way. We don't want people just using it so that they can fly through the roundabout a little bit faster. But so it gives that extra area that the rear wheels need in those bigger vehicles to be able to traverse through the roundabout.
Well, that's, I think that's an important thing to note because that's not wrong. When someone sees a truck going up onto that, that's not, the roundabout isn't big enough.
Exactly.
They're actually utilizing it the way it's designed to be utilized. So when you see those trucks and that, especially that rear part swing up onto that apron, they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
And we've done a lot of testing, and we will go out even before roundabouts open and run a large truck through there.
We sure do.
just to prove that it will work as it is designed to. So, when we also think about roundabouts, and again, it's more of an unfamiliarity, I think, that people are nervous about, and what the rules are for navigating a roundabout.
Sure. So as I mentioned, you're always going to enter and go right. don't go left unless you're in Great Britain or somewhere in Europe. So go to the right. You're circulating again in that clockwise or counterclockwise fashion, and you're yielding to traffic that is already within the roundabout. So you wait your turn, and there's typically always a gap. And again, because the speeds are so slow, you can typically find a gap pretty easily. Know, I think, when you're going into the roundabout, where you want to go. If you're going straight across, you're going to navigate halfway around. If you were traditionally going to make a right at that intersection, you would navigate to that first exit. If you wanted to make a left at that intersection, you navigate basically 3/4 of the way around. And so you kind of need to go into it knowing, and we understand there are lots of things that are confusing about, new transportation things. So it's not abnormal to have a little bit of a learning curve. Again, this is a safe place to have that learning curve because speeds are slow. And I think the number one rule, now don't do what Chevy Chase did in National Lampoon's European Vacation, but if you miss your exit, you could go around again.
Right.
So you don't stop in the middle of the roundabout.
Yeah.
Don't get worried. Don't start backing up because you can get there. Just go around one more time. And so those are the simple rules. And we definitely have some kind of roundabout guidance and videos, and we're happy to share those with folks. We've incorporated it into the driving manuals. And so once you get to use them, I think not having to wait for me is kind of the biggest thing. Again, especially in those off-peak times, there's zero delay.
Right.
I mean, how much time do we spend, sitting at locations unnecessarily in our daily commute? So a roundabout really alleviates that.
And you touched on it earlier, and another one that we often hear as well, traffic signals are just a better option, right? They're just, people know how to use a traffic signal, so we should just do traffic signals. But, again, that comes back to safety.
It comes back to safety. It comes back to what are the numbers? What are we trying to accomplish in that area? The multimodalism, kind of all of those factors go into it. So yes, is there a time and a place where an intersection 100% needs a traffic signal? Yes. Are there times when a roundabout would be a great improvement to an area? 100% yes. And so we are taking all of that into consideration. If things are equal and they're going to function exactly the same, we're going to go with a roundabout. Again, more resilient, more sustainable, safer for bikes and peds, minimal delay. All of those reasons point to the roundabout. And so there's a time and a place for a traffic signal, and there's a time and a place for roundabouts.
Absolutely. And hopefully all of this information now leads us to our next point. Really, we've looked back and how we've got here with, why are we using roundabouts? Let's talk a little bit about what the future holds and what our mindset is as a transportation agency and how we plan to further utilize roundabouts.
Sure. So we have roundabouts planned across the state. We have a lot of those planning studies out in the open. So whether you're in the Henlopen TID area, whether you're up in southern Newcastle County, in some of those areas, even within Kent County, we are implementing roundabouts really across the state. Again, using a data-driven decision-making process to say, all things equal, we go roundabout. I've explained the reasons why. In some cases, roundabout isn't the appropriate solution, but we've got, I would say, not hundreds of them planned, tens of them planned in the next couple of decades. The most recent one that we opened down in the Georgetown area at Bedford Street and Aero Safety Boulevard, it is functioning well. It's on a truck route. So that's kind of the perfect example to use. We have the one under construction at the Plantation Road, Beaver Dam Road, Route 9 intersection. We hope to open portions of that later this spring, with the roundabout being fully open to all traffic movements by Memorial Day. We've got them planned really across the board. And so excited to see them functioning well. Excited to see how they are transforming communities. We talk a lot about quality of life and having, corridors that have slower speeds and allow folks to be able to bike and walk along them and feel safe. That's what we're here to do. And so we're really excited to bring a lot of new roundabouts across the state in the coming years.
And up in my area, I live in North Wilmington, up near the Alapocus Run State Park, near the Blue Ball Barn. There was a major project there about almost 20 years ago now to really reconfigure that stretch of 202. It was a very congested stretch, and it was a massive project. And part of that project included 2 roundabouts.
Yes.
And to see those now just functioning, and it also adds to the character of that area. It's right on the edge of a state park, the historic Blue Ball Barn. Uh, you know, I go through it almost every day.
Right.
So
It's funny that you mentioned that because you think about the hustle and bustle of 202, and as soon as you exit and you go through those roundabouts, you're in a different place, even though you can still see 202 right there. And so that calming feel that they can give and that sense of place that a roundabout can provide is really important too.
And in Sussex County, where we're obviously seeing a lot of growth, this is an area where we are looking to incorporate more roundabouts to safely move traffic, especially in what were once rural areas, and
Yes.
looking at these as an effective alternative to just signalizing every intersection.
Yes, and we know how many complaints that we can get about because everyone wants the signal to be green when they're approaching
Right,
it.
right.
And the roundabout really kind of gives you that for the most part. You again reducing that delay, and so there are roundabouts coming to a place near you.
Well, this has been really informative. Thank you so much for taking the time to share about our thought process and really provide some history about why where roundabouts came from, why we're continuing to utilize them. And this is something that we think is going to ultimately make our roads safer. Ultimately that's our goal.
Our number one goal is safety at the end of the day. And so roundabouts have been proven to reduce crash potential and again be able to accommodate large amounts of vehicles and move them through in a safe manner.
And for you, the listener, if you're looking to find more information about roundabouts, you can go to our website. We have a whole page dedicated to roundabouts. We have a brochure about how to navigate roundabouts. We have videos, and a lot of states are doing this. So, you can go on YouTube, you can use a web search, and you're going to find probably more information than you want to on roundabouts themselves. So we definitely encourage you to educate yourself and get comfortable with them, and let's not be afraid of them. And when we talked earlier about the misconceptions ahead of roundabouts, it's always great once they've gone in and we hear from the naysayers, people who were definitely not wanting the roundabout, what their experience is.
Exactly. We get a ton of positive feedback. I can think of a project not too far from our office where folks were really against it. And it is a polarizing kind of topic. And after the roundabout was put in, they were just in awe with how well it worked, how much safer that location was. And so we again just see those benefits, and that's why we're continuing to build roundabouts across the state.
Well, thank you so much, Shante. This has been great. Hopefully, the audience, have learned something you may not have learned about roundabouts coming into this podcast. And we're grateful for you for taking the time to join us and take a few minutes of your day to learn about this. And hopefully, we'll come back and hear more about some of the topics that we have planned in the future. And if you have a topic that you think you'd like to learn more about or would like to have us discuss, feel free to email us. You can email us at dotpr@delaware.gov and put podcast topic in the subject line. Send it that way. We'll take that into consideration and see if we can find a guest. Maybe it's Shanté will come back and join us, and we can talk more about those topics. So thanks everyone for joining us for On the Move with DelDOT, and thank you, Shanté.
Happy to do it, and just end with a quick safety message. Buckle up, slow down, pay attention, and be patient so you can arrive alive.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about what's happening in transportation across our state. If you have any questions about what you heard in this episode, please let us know in the comments. Be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms linked in the description.